Bob Stewart, as the slide says, from General Motors. I've been in the automotive industry for 24 years, even though it doesn't look like it. I did start when I was 16 in a used car dealer, reconditioning used cars, and moved on to a aftermarket shop, and then moved into a dealership, and then moved on to General Motors. And my primary function at General Motors today is to make sure that the aftermarket has the same equivalent information available that the dealers have. So I bridge that gap. That's why I fit in with NASTF, to make sure that the aftermarket has everything that our dealers have. And the topic that I was asked to talk about today was our dealership technician training and what we require for them to be trained, and where we recruit students to become trained, to become dealer technicians, which is a challenge in the industry. Basically, technician's capability is a competitive advantage for GM. We understand if a technician is capable to repair our vehicles and our vehicles are repaired right, we're going to sell more cars. It all goes back to selling more vehicles. Now, our vice president of our organization, which is focused on after sales, his slogan is nothing happens until that car's sold. So that cycle all starts when that first car is sold. If the customer has a good experience, we're going to sell them another vehicle. We start right in the high schools with the AES program. Then we moved on to a GM program, which is ASEP, which is a 2-year college program. And then we have a training program for our dealership technicians that works all the way up to a world class. And I'll get a little bit more into what all of those are. It's kind of another graphic of the program. But as you see, it starts at the bottom with the AES program, which allows students to job shadow inside the dealership with dealership technicians, see if they really want to work as a dealer technician, get a little bit of experience as kind of a co-op student there. And also at the same time, we work with the high school program to make sure that they're getting some automotive experience and training there at a ground level. Then we move on to our post-secondary, which we typically work with community colleges with an associate program and a program called ASEP. And it's a specific GM training. It takes the basic fundamental GM training classes that we teach our technicians that didn't go through the program, and teaches them over an 8-week period, and then they work 8 weeks in the dealership and they go back and forth until they make their way through the 2-year program. And then we move up to what we call our Master Technician certification and our World Class certification. I'll go a little bit more into those, but basically we have continuing education in this business because technology evolves, and that program addresses that. Here's kind of our ASEP program. We started that back in 1979. It's a partnership between a community college, GM, and the dealership, so we all have to work together to make the program work. Currently, there's 60 schools with over 1,000 students participating in the program. 14 schools in Canada, 16 in China, 1 in Ecuador, and we're exploring whether we should open one in Mexico, 1 or 2 in Mexico. It's, like I said, it's a 2-year associate's program in automotive technology. They're exclusively taught GM repair training classes, the same one our dealership technicians take if they haven't went to a college program. It's based on a NASTF standard, so any school that we're doing business with is going to be a NASTF standard school. The cycle, as I mentioned, is 8 weeks on, 8 weeks off, co-op with the student. The student's responsible for finding their own sponsor, finding their own sponsored dealership, but we do help because we understand the value in the program, and we're struggling like many others to get qualified technicians in to our dealerships to repair these vehicles, so it's advantageous to us to make sure that we have students in the program. We need to feed the program. Requires all the basics, math, English, and science, which, you know, automotive repair is a lot of math and science, so those are key things. And one of the things that they've added in is English. People struggle with that, but you have to be able to communicate. Upon graduation, they get about 85% of the training that a dealer tech would get if they took the full program. So they just need to finish that last 15% to get what we call STS total, which is Service Technology Standards, which means the Service Technology College is what GM calls the training program, to get the full standards. We break it into different categories. As you'll see here, there's 13 different categories, 3 of them being body and collision type categories, number 11 and number 10. Both of those are taught by iCar. We don't actually do those in-house, and the paint ones are taught with paint supply companies, whoever's PPG or companies like that, Sherwin-Williams. And then we have an advanced technology section for the hybrids. As you see, it's kind of broken up, the categories, very similar to ASE certification categories, because one of the components of training is ASE certification. I was asked kind of how much time does it take for a technician to become trained within the GM program. You start down at the bottom, we include 20 hours of training, which is a WBT and a VCT. Wouldn't be a manufacturer if we didn't have acronyms. What the heck is a WBT and a VCT? WBT is a web-based training course, and a VCT is a virtual classroom training course. So that's kind of like a WebEx remote type training course, is the virtual training class. And a web-based training course is a course that you just take online, read, have some simulations in it, and you just go through and answer the questions. So there's about 22 hours there of that, and then it moves, and this here setup is just an example of the electrical area. You can be a master in each one of the areas, and then to become world class, you have to be a master in 9 of the 10 areas to be able to get that, plus you have to take an evaluation test. So the electrical category has an additional 46 hours worth of training with VCTs and WBTs, but it also ends in ILTs. So we got another acronym. That's instructor-led training. So now we have the classroom training. Kind of the GM approach now with training is what they call blended learning. So we start you out with the web-based stuff, the virtual classroom, and then work you into the instructor-led training. And then Master Tech certification has an additional 8 hours worth of training, and includes a hands-on assessment. And what the hands-on assessment is within a classroom we will set up training scenarios, faults within vehicles, and the technician has to go through and diagnose those and pass them and diagnose them properly within a certain amount of time to actually pass those training classes. So we evaluate and assess to make sure that they have the knowledge to repair electrical type failures. So world-class training is a total of roughly 600 hours of total training, and includes a total of 8 categories. So they have to have all of these for all 8 categories to be able to become world class. I asked the question of our training group, how many students do we have within training right now? They said roughly 29,000 students are within the GM training system that are currently active. And then the second part to the question was how many actually make it to world class technician? It's a little bit less than 5% of them make it there. And to Mark's point and his, you know, we incentivize them, we need to get them there, and the way we incentivize our technicians to get trained actually is through the service manager. The service manager that gets their technicians to 100% trained usually gets some type of trip somewhere. So you have to get something to incentivize them to get it done.